Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Outlook for July through October 2016. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next several minutes, we'll discuss recent weather, drought conditions, the current state of our fuels, changes with the weather and El Nino as we move through the next few months, and also putting all the pieces together for our fire potential outlook through this fall. Looking at the recent weather trend for June, the percent of average precipitation is on the left. We saw very dry conditions during June, especially over western and northern Nevada into Idaho and across Utah. However, we did have some wet weather that moved through towards the middle of the month over the southern and eastern half of Nevada, which did bring some above normal precipitation. If we look back to the beginning of the water year, the image on the right, back to October 1st, we see pretty healthy amounts of precipitation across all of Nevada into southern Idaho and parts of eastern Utah, with drier conditions over parts of the central Idaho mountains into central Utah. However, still a decent amount of precipitation, but those areas were just below normal. Looking at how this precipitation has affected the drought conditions across the Great Basin, the image on the left is the current drought monitor as of June 21st, and drought conditions have improved significantly across the western side of the Great Basin. However, we still are seeing moderate to severe drought over the western half of Nevada, with abnormally dry conditions extending further south and east. We also have abnormally dry conditions over the central portion of Utah, but the rest of the Great Basin has now been removed from drought conditions. As we move through the rest of the summer and the fall, we'll likely see the drought persist, especially over the western side of the Great Basin. It may improve slightly in some areas, but likely the drought will remain, at least as we go into the fall. If we look at our current fuel conditions now across the Great Basin, 100-hour fuel moistures, which is fairly representative of large fire potential across the area, shows these 100-hour fuel moistures are near or below 5%. This is very dry across the region and typical for this time of year. If now we look at the ERCs as of late June, we see across the map here, up into Idaho, we are seeing ERCs above normal, especially over the western side of the state. Further east, ERCs are a little bit closer to normal, and also down into Utah, they are right around normal. However, over the western side of Nevada, where conditions have been very dry over the last 3 to 4 weeks, along with several periods of hot weather that affected the Great Basin, ERCs are again above normal across Nevada and almost to values we saw back in 2012. Looking at live fuel moisture, the most recent updates from mid to late June show that live fuel moisture has been decreasing rapidly across the Great Basin and is even near record lows in many areas. Now if we look at the state of El Nino, we'll look at the sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. The image on the top is showing the current actual sea surface temperatures over the last few months, and you can see the cooler waters that have been emerging off the South American coast. How this relates to normal is this bottom loop showing the anomalies in the same area of sea surface temperatures, the blues indicating below normal and the oranges and reds indicating water temperatures above normal. We can see that over the last few months, this transition from the warm sea surface temperatures to the cooler ones has been ongoing, indicating the weakening of El Nino closer to neutral. Now that we looked at the recent weather across the Great Basin and how ocean temperatures are changing, which will likely indicate a change in our weather pattern, we'll look at the upcoming weather for the next few months. This middle row shows the expected temperatures from Predictive Services across the country as we move from July on the left to October on the right. Generally, very warm conditions will persist across the Great Basin during this time period. However, September we may see some cooling if we see additional troughs move into the area. However, this is still very uncertain. The bottom row shows the expected precipitation pattern across the country, and again, very dry conditions, especially on the northern and western side of the Great Basin through July. Over as we move further east into Utah, we get closer to the monsoon, which should be active in the Four Corners region and into Utah and into the southwest. As we move through August, we may see drier conditions emerge in all areas of the Great Basin, so even in areas of Utah that see decreasing fire activity throughout July with the moisture may see an increase in activity again as we move towards August, and this will continue to be monitored. Things get a little bit more uncertain as we move towards September and October. We may see some wet moisture move into parts of Idaho. However, again, this is still somewhat uncertain, with potentially dry weather reemerging in October. So if we put all these pieces together, we come up with our Predictive Services fire potential outlook for the Great Basin, and we will continue to see above normal conditions in the early part of July over parts of southern Nevada and southwest Utah until the moisture from the monsoon starts to push a little bit further northward and be a little bit more continuous. We will also see fire potential increase to above normal, as we've been talking about for months, over the western and northern side of Nevada into the southwest portion of Idaho through July and August. This is the area that has been very dry and hot recently with an above normal grass growth. As we move into September and October, we'll likely still see above normal fire potential if we hang on to that warmer and drier pattern over parts of Nevada into Idaho, but fire potential should be returning to normal as we move closer to October. So here's our national fire potential outlook. Again, you can see the areas of the Great Basin along with areas of above normal fire potential still in the southwest in July and increasing in California both through July and August. As we move into September, October, many areas of the northern tier of the country will be returning to normal. In summary, again, we still have drought conditions across the Great Basin, especially across the western half of Nevada, but they have been improving with the recent rainfall over the last several months. The annual grass crop is above normal over the northern half of the Great Basin and is most concerning over western and northern Nevada into Idaho. Weakening El Nino becomes neutral, and this will likely change our weather pattern to seeing alternating periods of hot temperatures and thunderstorms and periods of dry and windy weather, which will continue to keep fire potential higher. Therefore, above normal fire potential is still over southern Nevada and southwest Utah into early July, and then will return to normal as fire activity picks up north and west. That concludes our briefing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us at the emails on the screen, or you can find us on Twitter. Thanks for listening.